Ah, that was not just a happy accident. Okay, very good. And you've been
Yeah,
to
that was on purpose.
some farmers markets and craft fairs already?
I have. I have. I've been to about five or six now.
How did you
Um,
do?
so at the first one, I did well, but really it was because I think it was because it was my first one, and I had family to come support me, which was wonderful. Um, my second show, I sold nothing,
Mm.
and when you are first starting out, I think if I hadn't been such an avid fan of the Don't Keep Your Day Job podcast and knew that I had all that background and knowledge to know that sometimes that just happens. Sometimes you're not with your people. It's not your time. It's not the space. And that's okay. So I learned that from actually the Cheesecake Ninja. That's really where I learned that whole concept of, he's been on the podcast at least once now, but he's an avid fan of the podcast, and he started making cheesecakes, and he tried to sell them to people in his town, and then he went one town, and he wasn't doing a great, just wasn't really connecting with the people in his town, and then he went one town over, and that's when things just exploded, and he's got a brick and mortar business now. And the whole moral is that sometimes you're just, even if it's the people closest to you, sometimes those people are not your people. So I'm trying to get out to different areas all over Maryland where I live, as much as I can, to try to find where my people are. And, I realized at that event that maybe wasn't the right time or the right space. And I did a little bit more work, and at my third event, I was extremely successful, and at the two subsequent events have been pretty steady. So I'm starting to get the hang of it. I really love it. I enjoy connecting with people. It's definitely my favorite way to sell.
Any tips for someone who wants to go to a craft fair or farmer's market with their jewelry or artistic wares?
What a great question. That is a really great question. My tip is that you have to keep your spirit up. Don't let anyone bring your spirit down. Even if you get into that very last hour and you haven't sold anything, you have to keep your spirit up, and you have to be generous. If you get into that last hour and you haven't sold anything, go around, buy yourself something to eat, and leave a good tip. Go get a little trinket that you saw out of the corner of your eye and chat with the person that's standing. Make sure you're always trying to be friendly with the other vendors as much as possible. It's really critically important to make friends, because I've gotten other gigs just from talking to, by befriending the people around me. I've been told, your stuff is priced too low. Your stuff is too pretty to be, it's too well crafted to be priced at this point. You need to increase your prices. Make sure you value yourself appropriately, because it's not only you that's benefiting, it's benefiting everyone else. Because when you value yourself appropriately, then everyone else can value themselves appropriately. But yeah, keep your spirits up. That's definitely the best thing that you can do.
How do you come up with a price for something? I mean, is it seeing how much other people sell it for?
There are a lot of different methods for pricing. I don't know that I necessarily have the best solution. I'm still working through it, because I've only really been in business for 3 or 4 months, so it really hasn't been that long. But it's important to think about your material costs.
Mm.
You have to put a value on your own time. So, and then you've got to add that together, and then add some kind of percentage profit on top of it if you want to keep going.
Mm.
So, what does your minimum wage look like in your state? Do you deserve to make more than minimum wage? Probably. So what does that look like? Give yourself an hourly wage, and then see how long does it take you to make the thing that you made? Is there any wear and tear on your supplies, on your, like for me, it's my oven. I use my oven to bake the clay. So does that have a cost, the extra electricity that I'm constantly running? So you have to think about all those things and whether you want to factor them in, because if you're priced too low, then you're just not going to be able to last.
And you do have an Etsy shop page. How is it with that?
So Etsy it's been a little bit of a challenge for me. I definitely do prefer to sell in person, but I'm working on the Etsy shop. It's definitely a good example of me doing it messy and just trying to get something out there. I have something that I can refer clients to, which is always important online. But selling in person is definitely my favorite way to sell, and I am trying to invest in myself and learn more about Etsy. It's just a work in progress.
And what is your process for crafting your jewelry? How much time does it take to create a design and get it into the clay and bake it and all that?
Well, okay, so it's complicated. It depends on what I'm doing. There's a couple different methods for clay makers. The common ones are the flat lay method, where you lay a piece of clay flat and then you cut into it with essentially cookie cutter type devices. And then the other method is rolling clay over each other, which kind of creates this pattern, which they call a cane, which ends up being like this big tube of clay. So canes take a very long time. The flat lay method is a little bit more time efficient, but sometimes I also do sculpture into my clay designs as well. So I have, for example, I've made little lipstick earrings, which, that's like a figurine in itself. So depends on what I'm doing, how long it takes. But there's always this process of setting up, and usually I'll be at it for an entire day. And sometimes, you just get in the flow and you forget to eat, and you just keep going. It's one of those things for me that I get all consumed by it when I'm doing it.
Do the designs usually come to you, or maybe while you're doing it, you create the design as it's happening?
I get inspired a lot by material. I get inspired by the designs on clothing that I see, or the designs on clothing that I have. And then I use those designs to inspire the design of the jewelry and what I think might go with it. Sometimes the design will just come to me. There's this one necklace that I made I call it the bubble necklace, because it's got all these like intertwining circles. And that idea just kind of came to me that it just wanted to be made. So I made it, and then I've had subsequent requests for it, because usually I don't make multiples, but I have people come to me with that picture and say, do you still have this necklace? And I say, no, but I can make it for you. So I've made a couple of copies of the original for folks. I get requests for that a lot. And then I also am pretty popular for making handmade roses. I make each petal, I form each petal and put each petal together to form the rose. So they're very beautiful and unique. And when I make roses, and I make each flower very delicately, when I make my flower jewelry, it all goes very fast.
Well, as stated, you Don't Keep Your Day Job a lot, a fan, and you also have you are part of a Don't Keep Your Day Job group?
Yes. So Kathy Heller has put together, her team has put together listening groups all over the country, I think actually all over the world. So you can contact your team and be hooked up with the listening group for whatever location you're in. And that's what I did. When I realized that was an option, I reached out to her team, and they hooked me up with this group. And we meet over Zoom call weekly. And I've become very close with a lot of the folks in that group. And we depend on each other. We rely on each other for accountability, but also to bounce ideas off of each other, support each other. We've gotten very close. We're kind of like a little family. We talk about personal stuff. We talk about business stuff, big wins, big losses, and of course the accountability element, which is so fantastic. Each week we talk about the thing that we want to accomplish in the following week, and there's no disciplinary action if you don't accomplish what you want to accomplish in the week, but there's studies indicating that if you say something out loud to a group of people, you're more likely to actually accomplish it. So just the action of saying it out loud is really beneficial. I've seen it happen in my life. I know others in the group have also seen that happen for them. So we just keep pushing each other forward. We have different perspectives because we're all doing different things. And also, you know, when you need someone that does a certain thing that's outside of what you do, sometimes someone in the group will know someone or be able to do it for you or with you.
Now, are any of these people in your group, are they based in Maryland or are they all over?
So it's DC, Maryland, and Virginia. So I met a woman who lives 10 minutes away from me, and she's fantastic, and we see each other very frequently. And I talked to another woman who lives in Virginia, so she's not as close, but she did come up a couple weekends ago. She came up because we formed a little subgroup. We formed a little subgroup to read this book called You Are a Badass at Making Money, Jen Sincero's book. So 4 of us out of the bigger group, the bigger listening group, decided to read this book together because I confessed that I wanted to read it and I was afraid because dealing with my money problems really scared the bejesus out of me. And so I didn't want to do it alone. And some people in that group rallied with me, and we all decided to do it together, and it's been absolutely transformative in our lives. It has transformed my perspective completely.
So now you're a badass with money?
I am kind of a badass with money. I'm really getting there.
Okay, great. Got to be as an artist. Got to be able to support yourself. Now,
Right.
has family been encouraging with you doing the clay and the writing now?
Yes, they definitely have been encouraging. I think the trouble is when you're not a creative yourself, you can only be encouraging to a certain point. And I love, and I'm so lucky to have so many people close to me that are so supportive of what I'm doing. There are definitely folks that are not in my position that don't have people supporting them. So I'm lucky for that. But having a group of creative people in my life that know what I'm going through a little bit more has been just completely instrumental.
Well, she is following the advice of the title of the podcast, Don't Keep Your Day Job. Right? She's not going to keep that lawyer day job anymore?
No, I just quit. I just stopped working. I quit with plenty of lead time for my position, and really worked hard to get a good transition plan together. But I have left my job officially as of July 26th.
Yay, for you. Now what's she going to do?
Yeah.
More. She's going to do more writing, more crafting, right?
More writing, more crafting, and really just following my intuition and figuring out what I'm meant to be doing in this life, right?
Yeah.
If you can do the tech part of it, you do whatever you can do.
I know, that's what you got to do here. All right. Do you think we all have an artist inside of us?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I do. One thing I haven't mentioned yet, actually, is that I am putting together, we're actually about to meet for our first meeting, but I've put together a group to read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And now more than ever, I definitely believe that every single person has an artist within them. It's the artist child that you're born with. every kid loves to get into doing something creative, even if it's messy, even if they don't have any fear.